Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 2, where I just went through a test launch sequence of this just to make sure that things were going to work about as I expected them to do, and they absolutely do. So that's good. It is going to mean we have a fair amount of DV left in this tank once we reach orbit, but our thrust to weight on the launcher is definitely low. There's no doubt about it, it is a low thrust to weight down here. There are a couple of things we could do about that. We could increase the number of SRBs, and I don't think that's a terrible idea. Actually, that would be a good idea. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just double the number of SRBs that we've got on here. So I'm going to do that by taking this off of here, and we're going to move it to about here or so. Then we're going to duplicate it and put it about here or so. Okay, this is definitely not ideal in terms of placement. Maybe a little bit closer to here. Something like that. It's not perfect in terms of its distribution, but it probably doesn't need to be. So we would group these together, we would do this, and this will give us a lot more thrust to weight. 1.46 allegedly. There we go, 1.98. It didn't update for a moment there. 1.98 is much better thrust to weight. No doubt about that. So that is great. In theory, this should work absolutely fine. Now let's put our Kerbals in here, and we'll just put in Bill and Valentina, and we might as well put Tim C in here as well. You'll be absolutely fine. So we can launch this, and that means that we're going to be getting going a lot faster. That's a very, 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 very good thing. So that is absolutely great. The only other question is, what about the overtip? Well, I think that that's mostly a result of being too low in the atmosphere before we start heading over to the horizon. So let's just launch this, and I believe that we should probably go to an apoapsis of probably around 20 or 30 kilometers before we start our tip over, and that'll be fine. So let's just launch this. It'll be much, much faster off the pad, although the frame rate will be a little bit lower. I mean, it's KSP2. What are you gonna do? Let's go. Okay, we'll just put this in up, and off we go. It still feels a little bit slow off the pad, but it shouldn't be. 1.98 is a pretty good thrust to weight ratio. I think this is likely just to do with the frame rate. So that's fine. We're absolutely going to lift this up, and we're going to be going straight up for a while here. And the reason for that, of course, is I just want to be a little higher so that we don't have that tipping issue. We do have a lot of weight up here, and that means that we're going to have some slightly awkward situations with our center of mass. So we just want to be a little higher up. And I mean, I was going to say that the low thrust to weight issue also means that we should go vertically a little bit longer, but we don't really have the low thrust to weight issue at this point. The real question now is, how clean is our detach on the SRBs? And in my previous testing, SRB detach seemed pretty clean. We'll see if that's the case with doubling the number of SRBs, but for now, it should be reasonably fine. So we're moving at about 135 meters per second. We, of course, need quite a lot more speed than that. Pushing up through the cloud layer, and our SRBs are burning off quite a lot of weight. Of course, we have a crazy amount of weight in our fuel down here in our first stage, and that's absolutely fine. I'm thinking right now, with the extremely aggressive curve on the thrust to weight on the nuclear engines, I'm wondering if this stage is necessary. I mean, I'm still going to keep it. But what I would be thinking is we would launch like 2 of these. We'd strap a couple of SRBs onto the sides here, use those to get it up high enough to where the nuclear engines could put it in orbit. Then we would dock 2 of them together and refuel once we're in orbit. And then we'd deorbit 1 of them. It'd be a whole thing. It's kind of a crazy idea, but it might work because of how aggressive that curve is. All we got to do is get this up a little bit, and the thrust to weight is solid. For now, of course, we're not too concerned about that. This design is what we're going to use to take us to Thailand. and that's absolutely fine. So we have an apoapsis of 20 kilometers. Usually by this point, I would be thinking about putting us into some amount of horizontal movement here. But I'm going to keep pushing us up to 30. I just want to be in a fairly safe position here before we do that. Okay, so I'm going to put us into prograde now. We're almost to 30. Let's switch to orbital mode. We're going to get some amount of horizontal speed here, but I'm not going to go beyond where the prograde marker is here, assuming we don't flip. Ooh, we're overshooting a bit. Okay. This isn't exactly where we want to be, but it's not the worst either. Actually, this is a pretty good spot to end. Let's just hold here. We'll hold attitude here. Continue to push our apoapsis up, but we want to have a fair amount of horizontal speed. I am noting the heat bars, but for the moment, I feel like it's okay. We're going to want to let this oscillation settle out because we're going to be ditching our SRBs shortly, and we definitely don't want to be oscillating while we are shifting our SRBs, or rather ditching our SRBs. SRBs are out now. Get rid of them. How clean is this? Very clean detachment. Okay, I think that worked, to be honest. At this point, our apoapsis is plenty high, and we should be pushing directly for the horizon. We should be getting purely horizontal speed at this juncture. So this looks good, all things considered. I think we burn here for a good long time. The next question is, we overshoot this a little bit. Yeah, there's a lot of mass still here, so our reaction wheels are struggling a little bit, and these engines don't appear to be great at gimbal. Do they even have gimbal? They do. I'm not sure what the gimbal limit is. I think we looked at it last episode, and I think it was like 3 degrees or something like that. So they do have gimbaling, but it's not phenomenal. Let's just park ourselves about here and work on getting ourselves up to orbital velocity. So this looks good. We do see time to apoapsis is going down, but that's okay. Actually, is it going back up now? It's holding. Yeah, it's going back up. So we're solid here. Thrust to weight is good. Beautiful. That will be absolutely wonderful. We're not quite high enough up to extend our solar panels, although I guess we actually are, now that I think about it. We know that those solar panels will survive a lot. We've got a 100-kilometer apoapsis. I want to keep pushing this up for a ways. So let's just continue getting horizontal speed here. Okay, right about here or so. Continue to get horizontal speed until our orbital velocity is very, very close to being, you know, actually orbital. So that looks good. We're at about 110-kilometer apoapsis. It's not going up super fast just yet, but I think this is fine. We're really, really close to orbital velocity on that ascent profile. So honestly, that was pretty good. Not necessarily entirely intentional, but pretty good, all things considered. I think we'll just put this up to like 150 or 200. We're about to ditch our side tanks. There we go. And we can see we've got about 4,000 meters per second here. Just hoping for a clean detachment there. It looks clean. Excellent. So you can see here that this is not a lot of thrust to weight once we get to this point, but we're most of the way to orbit now. I'm going to park us right on the prograde marker here, and we're just going to push this apoapsis up a little bit. There we go. So right now, we can see that our time to apoapsis is still increasing. So this is absolutely fine. We could technically just circularize from here. Our thrust to weight is certainly low, but it will improve as we burn off this crazy amount of mass here. Like, this is 700 tons of fuel that we've got here. Actually, like, closer to 800 tons. Over 800 tons? I think it's over 800 tons. It's a lot of mass. No doubt about that. Let's just put it at 150 and call it good. So we're at 146, 147, 148, 149, and 150. We'll call that good, and now we'll circularize. This was almost entirely getting horizontal speed at this point. So how much DV is this going to take to circularize this? Well, the answer is we should burn a little bit earlier, most likely, or maybe even around here. I mean, that is definitely imperfect. Yeah, it needs to be a little earlier than that, and a little bit more prograde. Yeah, somewhere around there. So that's 420 delta V there. Let's go ahead and align for this burn. We should also definitely extend our solar panels, which apparently we cannot do automatically. Sure. We'll just get those solar panels extended and these solar panels extended. Now, note that I didn't actually put RTGs on this. I don't think that they're strictly speaking necessary. But let's get these solar panels extended and we'll get some amount of electric charge on here. We could, I suppose, bring up a docking port here that just has like a cargo bay with a couple RTGs in it, but I don't think that's necessary. I really, really don't. So let's just get ourselves aligned for this burn. It's going to start in about 3 minutes. Our turn speed is not too bad with the added reaction wheels. And this is the worst that our turn speed is going to be. It is going to take a little bit of time to get ourselves over there. So I'm going to cut out the rest of this turn, and we'll be back closer to the turn point. See you guys in a moment. Okay, so here we are very close to our turn position. As you can see, we've used some electric charge, but it's like oscillating between going up and down at this point. That's fine. Let's warp on forward to where this burn will be. We're about 2 minutes away from it, and it's going to be a 1 and 41 second burn. Our thrust to weight is low at this point, no doubt about it, but anything we get out of this first stage at this point is just gravy. So that looks good. We've got 30 seconds to go here. Make that 20 and 10 and 4, 3, 2, these are long seconds, 1, and mark. Okay, so we're going to want to warp through this at least a little bit. Cool. That looks fine. It's going to be a low thrust to weight burn, of course. There was never any doubt about that. And we just need to get ourselves into orbit at this point. But we might have to take multiple passes on our burn to get out of Kerbal orbit because of the thrust to weight of it. That said, the thrust to weight will be increasing tremendously as we make our way through these burns. But you can see just how long this burn is relative to our orbit by how much our maneuver node has drifted. So that's a bit problematic. So let's just position ourselves around here. This is putting ourselves in orbit, and that is perfect. So at this point, we want to attempt to escape from Kerbal, right? And I strongly suspect, well, we want to be going away from the sun. So we want to be burning around here or so. But we probably want to do this in 2 or so passes. Because if we were to just do this burn, right, this would escape. And where would it put us in terms of our apoapsis? Yeah, I mean, we could definitely burn to be out by the dress orbit. This is going to be about a 4-minute burn. A 5-minute burn. So if we zoom back in here, we can see this is going to be starting like here, and we're going to lose efficiency. We'll be here by the time the burn ends. So we probably want to have this be a little bit more this way. Just start the burn a little earlier would be the idea. And if we take a look at what that does to the burn, it definitely pushes us out a little bit further. I want to be about at that dress orbit marker, so about here. So that saves us about 100 meters per second. Not much of burn time, but it does mean that our burn is going to be maybe ever so slightly more efficient here. It's not going to be great due to the thrust to weight, but that's okay. So let's align for that burn, and this turn is still going to be a little on the slow side. Am I regretting not having an RTG right now? Probably not. Our turn is going to be much, 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 much faster once we get rid of this. I think we'll be okay as long as we don't spend too much time in nighttime, right? This is kind of a worst case scenario right here, which is that we have a lot of mass to move and we have no sunlight. And we're not burning. So we have no source of energy right now. We could turn off our lights. That will save us a negligible amount of energy. So that is something that we can do going forward if we feel like we're going to have problems. I don't currently feel like we're going to have problems. So this burn will be in about 1.5 minutes, and it will be about a 5-minute burn. It'll burn off about half of our remaining fuel in our first stage here. So we'll definitely be able to do an inclination change and potentially even our Hohmann transfer. That said, we may circularize around dress as well, and we'll see what ends up happening with that. It's certainly a slow turn, but we've barely used all that much electric charge, so I think we'll be okay. We're going to be coming down on the day side of Tylo anyway. Guaranteed. 100% we know that we're going to be doing that. So that's absolutely fine. Let's just finish up this last little bit of burn. We've got about 1 minute until the burn, or rather turn, and then 1 minute until the burn. Very similar words. And at this point, I think we're completely fine to have our lights on, and we definitely should. I want to be able to see things, right? At least a little bit. Being able to see some things is good. So we're pretty much in position for our turn at this point. I want to start warping forward very, very shortly here. Yeah, let's warp forward about now. We've got 30 seconds, 20, 10, and 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Engine is lit, and we are burning. Note how this is pretty much a pure pro-grade burn at this moment. That'll change. Okay, let's warp forward. Yep, it's definitely drifting here. So we're losing some efficiency to that. Okay, I believe we overshot this a little bit, but that's fine. 1569 meters per second left. We are actually technically going to have a moon encounter here, but it doesn't matter. We're not going to be we're not going to be impacting the moon, and we're not really attempting to gravitationally assist it either. But we're not getting our projection actually because of that. So we need to warp past that moon periapsis. Really, we would need to warp to about here or so. Like, we're just going to be flying by the moon. We're not attempting to utilize it for anything. It just happens to be in our way. So we're currently over the moon, and we are passing on through. Excellent. Goodbye, moon. And let's push on through now that we actually have a projection to where we'll be out here. So I want to warp to about here or so, getting us out of the Kerbal system. And I want to set Joule as our target. Cool. So we can see we've got that 1.3 degree inclination there. And if we were to start up a maneuver about here, we would need to burn which direction? This way. Okay. So somewhere around here or so. 114 meters per second. That's fine. Do it. So we'll align for that burn. We'll have much better power flow out here, although the directionality is not ideal for it. But we've burned through a lot of the fuel here, so we're definitely starting to turn faster. It's not fast, it's faster. But the added reaction wheels are certainly helping. There's no doubt about that one. We're going to be ditching this stage in 1569 meters per second. And you know, it's really just slow to get going. Once we get going on the turn, it's a reasonably quick turn. Not amazingly quick, but reasonably so. So the next question is, do we want to go for an encounter with Jewel? Or do we want to circularize here? That's the question that must be asked. And I think the answer is a circularization likely makes a lot of sense here. However, it's not necessarily going to be the case. It depends on where Jewel is when we would arrive here, right? Because if we're at the apoapsis and we push the periapsis up to here, and Jewel happens to be there, I think it's unlikely. But if that's the case, then we'll go for it. Absolutely, we'll go for it. For now, of course, we're busily turning, and we can see that our electric charge is going down reasonably quickly here, but we've got a lot in the tank here. We've got a lot of battery capacity. And I'm not seeing anything really to be concerned about. The electric charge situation will only get better as we go forward. So that should be absolutely fine. This is, of course, going to be a pretty lengthy mission. We're only 1 day into this mission right now, but it is certainly going to be a pretty long one. Let's get in position for our inclination change. That'll happen in 276 days. But yeah, we'll see where Jewel ends up being. It's probably going to be a little bit awkward for us to get our transfer over to Jewel, but it'll be fine. We're very, very close at this point to our turn point, but it takes a while to get going on this turn, so I don't exactly want to warp yet. Once we get going, we turn at an appreciable rate. It's not fast, but it's okay. Let's warp on forward about now. Yes, we're out of communication range. That is expected. And this is going to drop us like 3 hours away. Yeah, 4 hours almost. So let's continue to warp forward. We're now 2.5 minutes away. Let's warp forward a little faster than that. About 1 minute away. 30 seconds. 20. 10. And 4, 3, 2, 1... mark. Okay, so this is only going to be about a 14-second burn here. And this will put us into the correct inclination to be able to go to Jewel. Or a correct inclination. We could do it anyway, but this will make it easier to find an encounter. 2, 1, 0. Okay, overshot it slightly. It should be okay. Let's see what we've got here. I'm trying to zoom out. It's very slow. Okay, so yep, we're at 0.0. That looks solid. So with Jewel as our target, if we were to take our apoapsis and bring this on out, this is, of course, going to be a lot of TV. Oh, hang on. That was an encounter. Wasn't it? No, it was not. Okay, that was not an encounter. I guess I'm not surprised about that at all. So let's bring this back down, and we're just going to look to circularize here. Right about there or so. So that'll be fine, and with that circularized, we'll be able to find an encounter a little bit easier. That said, I mean, Jewel isn't exactly in a circular orbit. We may want to push it out to be a little bit more like this or so. Now, that is going to burn a little bit from our nuclear engines, but that's absolutely fine. So let's get turning here, but it is time to put a cut in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we are going to arrive at Tylo, and we'll see if we've got the time to do our actual landing. And hopefully we don't have an issue with our electric charge out there. I don't think we will, based on what we experienced last time. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Andy McGar, Ali Lee, Dark Horse, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Tommy Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.